Okay, this video is called, Is Andrew Huberman Correct About Study Breaks? This is Andrew Huberman here. He's a very famous neuroscientist, probably the most famous neuroscientist in the world these days. He's over at Stanford University, and he has his guidelines. He's got guidelines about all kinds of things, his morning routine, and then about studying. And he says, when you study, about every 2 minutes, you should pause for about 10 seconds to let the content register with your brain, to seep in, to let your neurons process the material. And then he says, at least every 90 minutes, if not sooner, you should take a longer study break. Because he says that's what research shows is all our brains can handle. And I want to tell you something. Now, I like Hubie. I think he's a good guy. I think his heart's in the right place. I'm also jealous of him, okay? He's better looking than me. He's bigger than me. He's a lot more famous than me. He's a great marketer and all that stuff. But I'm a lot smarter than him and know a lot more about school and studying than he does. And if we wrestled, I think I could probably choke him out in about 2 minutes. It's not a coincidence I wrestled for the world champion Schultz brothers at Stanford and set the record for most wins. But just kidding. I'm kind of kidding in that sense. And why did I even go through that little spiel? Because I'm laughing about John Zerka and HS. John Zerka and HS are two internet entertainer comedian types, and Zerka challenged HS, to spar with him because HS said he was going to kick his butt. And then Zerka, I don't know who traveled to see who, but then then Zerka kind of hassled HS, and they fought in the street, and it was totally stupid. HS got the best of this moment, but Zerka claims he only slipped. This was the most popular video on Twitter entirely for 2 days straight. So anyways, joking aside, okay? So that was like my little joke, that neuroscientists become better known if they would wrestle in public. But you know what? I'm not that pathetic, okay? I'll just accept my fate that I'll always be shadow banned. But anyways, getting back to the study rules, okay? If you're studying something completely new, then there's a lot of truth to what Huberman says. With really complicated material, you have to pause more often, ask yourself the question, do I understand this? Did I just understand that sentence I read, that paragraph I read? And you will need to take more frequent study breaks. That is true. And when you take a study break, by the way, you should do a walk and talk. Talk to yourself about the material you just studied, because that puts a copy in your speech center, your hearing center, and you will remember it better. That working with the information, recalling it, makes you have to put it all together, and to be able to articulate it gets you to learn it better. However, I'm going to take this to a higher level. The main reason a lot of students need to take all these breaks is because they're kind of bored with the topic. They're just taking the class to get a grade, and they're not really interested in the material. And a typical example is I had a friend in law school who said, man, Saturday was a bitch. I studied for 5 hours. And, pretty much any medical student would laugh at that comment. 5 hours is routine studying for a weekday, yet alone on a weekend, one would study much more. But once again, I'm getting at something bigger than this. I wouldn't have made this video just to joke about Zerka and Huberman unless I had something more important to say. And here it is. Teach yourself to become more interested in the material. I'm going to show you two paintings here related to a famous book by Goethe, the German author, philosopher, and the name of the book was The Sorrows of Young Werther, and this is young Werther, and he was in love with this girl named Charlotte. She actually liked him as a friend to chat with because she was bored babysitting for her siblings, but she did have a man who she planned to marry who was simply away for the year or so. So anyways, Werther would come in and see her while she was babysitting all her siblings, and he would spend time with her. And he was absolutely in love with her. There were no cell phones in those days, so he'd keep writing letters to his friend Wilhelm. Oh, I love the way Charlotte, just the way she is, the way she walks, the way she talks, the way she dresses, the way she interacts with her siblings, the way she handles every little matter. And he was constantly writing these letters to his friends Wilhelm, and that's mostly what the book is about. And my point is, you take any student and you get them the same way that Werther loved Charlotte, get them to fall in love with biology, with whatever subject they're studying, and they'll get great at it. And I can tell you, that's what I did. And when you're that enthusiastic about the subject, man, you could study much longer. Like, for example, when I'm working on a project I'm interested in, my problem is I got to get up because it's not healthy for me to sit so long. I'll be cranking out 3 hours in a row when I'm fascinated trying to figure out what causes diabetes, what causes hypertension. I could read for hour after hour after hour. And I think that's also why, I could easily, get like the highest grade in the class because it was kind of fun for me to study. And then how do you talk yourself into doing that? The way you have to do it is you have to look into the future. For example, when I was in high school, I was real popular with hanging around with my wrestling friends, lovely, wonderful girlfriend. Then when I was at Stanford, I was all alone. I didn't know anybody. I got injured at first, and I didn't have any friends there because I didn't know anybody. And basically, I had this idea in my mind, well, someday I'll become a great scientist or a great doctor, and then my life will be great. Then I'll be popular again. I'll have a nice girlfriend or wife, and I'll have fun, friends to joke around with, something to do on the weekends. And, I would also say to myself, like, biochemistry, this is the language of God that he uses to write the book of life. And if I'm going to become a great doctor or scientist, I must learn it. And I get psyched up to sit in the front row. And it was like a challenge between me and the teacher if he could get anything past me that I didn't already kind of know because I had read for hours and hours the night before. And this sort of enthusiasm for the material, for the topic, for how that material could help you. Whatever I would rotate through on my clinical rotations as a medical student, I would say to myself, like when I rotated through endocrinology, well, I'm going to try to understand diabetes. When I would rotate through, whatever it was, pulmonology, neurology, you name it, I would always say to myself, maybe I'm going to go into this material could really help me. And then I would try to get the highest grade in the class on the test at the end. All of that motivation really helped me to learn a lot, because what you're doing is you're telling your brain, this is important, pay attention, we need to know this. And when you are aligned, your conscious mind with your subconscious mind, everything just flows. You've got energy, you can learn fast, you can push yourself, and that makes you a much better learner. So anyways, yes, I think there's some truth in what you be saying, but I do think if you develop these types of positive attitudes, incorporate the topic into part of your self-image that you are developing to become a more expert in that area, you will be able to learn much better, and you will greatly improve your academic performance and your just ability to learn.